You really thought those children would forget me." The courtroom was packed, standing room only. I sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, my natural hair now fully silver, my hands trembling as the prosecutor painted me as a monster. "This woman," he said, pointing at me with disgust, "embezzled over $200,000 from the nonprofit she claimed to run. She preyed on this community's trust for her own greed." I watched Judge Morrison's face, that stern expression that had sent so many people away for decades. Then the courtroom doors burst open. 3 figures walked down that center aisle. The man in front wore a custom navy suit that probably cost more than my entire legal defense. The woman beside him had a briefcase that screamed senior partner at a major law firm. The third person carried a stack of documents so thick it could have been a phone book. The prosecutor's face drained of every drop of color as Dr. Charles Chen now, took the witness stand. You know what they say about karma? She doesn't just come back. She comes back with receipts, law degrees, and a forensic accountant. My name is Lorraine Webb, though for the past 6 months I've been inmate number 847392. This is the story of how I went from a decorated social worker facing 20 years in federal prison to walking out of that courtroom a free woman, all because 3 children I found sleeping in a cardboard box 25 years ago refused to let the system destroy me the way it had tried to destroy them. If you've ever been told you're too soft for this world, if you've ever given everything you had to help others only to be accused of having selfish motives, if you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted with your whole heart, if you've ever watched your reputation built over decades get torn apart in 60 seconds by lies, if you've ever been made to feel like your kindness was actually your greatest weakness, if you've ever been blamed for caring too much, then this story is for you. Because sometimes the universe has a plan so perfect, so divinely orchestrated, that it takes your breath away and makes you believe in something bigger than yourself. Hit that like button if you believe in the kind of justice that can't be bought, the kind that's built on love and loyalty that transcends blood. Subscribe, because this story is going to remind you that the seeds you plant in kindness can grow into forests strong enough to shelter you when your own world falls apart. And let me tell you, by the time we reach the end of this story, you're going to understand that sometimes the family you choose becomes the army that fights for you when everyone else has abandoned the battlefield. But let me start from the beginning, back when I was 32 years old, working myself to exhaustion at Chicago's Department of Child Services, and I had no idea that one freezing November night would change the trajectory of my entire life. I met those 3 children on November 14, 1998. I was 32 years old, working the night shift at Chicago's Department of Child Services, because that's when the worst calls came in, the ones nobody else wanted to take. It was 2:47 a.m. when dispatch radioed about possible abandoned minors behind the old Salvation Army building on South State Street. I remember pulling up in my beat-up Honda Civic, the heater barely working, my breath fogging in the freezing air. The temperature had dropped to 19 degrees that night. 19 degrees, and there, tucked between a dumpster and the brick wall, was a refrigerator box that someone had tried to make into a shelter. Inside that box were 3 children. The oldest couldn't have been more than 8. A little girl with her hair in crooked braids, wearing a coat that was 3 sizes too small. She had her arms wrapped around 2 smaller children, a boy about 6 and a girl who looked maybe 4 years old. All 3 of them were shivering so hard their teeth chattered like castanets. But here's what broke me. That 8-year-old looked up at me with these huge brown eyes and said, "Please don't take my brother and sister. I'm taking good care of them. I promise I am." Her name was Tamika. The boy was Jerome. The little one was Shanice. Their mother had died from an overdose 3 weeks earlier, and their grandmother, the only other family they had suffered a stroke and been placed in a nursing home. Rather than let the system separate them, Tamika had taken her siblings and run. For 3 weeks, this 8-year-old child had been keeping her family together in a cardboard box. I knelt down in front of that box and I said, "Baby, you've done an amazing job, but it's 19 degrees out here and I can't let you freeze. How about you come home with me tonight, just for tonight, and we'll figure everything out in the morning?" Tamika studied my face for what felt like an eternity. Then she said, "All 3 of us? You won't split us up?" "All 3 of you," I promised. That night was supposed to be temporary. I was supposed to take them to emergency foster placement in the morning, but when morning came, I looked at those 3 babies sleeping in my bed. I'd given them my bed and slept on the couch, and I couldn't do it. I called my supervisor, a woman named Patricia, who'd been in the system for 30 years. I said, "Patricia, I want to foster them." "Lorraine," she said, her voice heavy with warning, "you're single. You live in a 1-bedroom apartment. You make $32,000 a year. The system is going to fight you on this." "Then I'll fight back," I said, and I did. For 6 months, I fought. I moved into a 3-bedroom apartment I could barely afford. I worked double shifts and took on weekend consulting work. I attended every court hearing, filled out every form, underwent every home inspection. Patricia warned me that I was getting too attached, that I was setting myself up for heartbreak. But by May of 1999, those 3 children were officially my foster children, and by December of 2000, after another year of legal battles, they were mine. Adopted. Legally and completely mine. Little things at first. I had a friend. Well, I thought she was a friend. Vanessa Pritchard. We'd known each other since college, both of us studying social work. Both of us determined to change the world. She'd been there through my divorce, through my mother's death, through every major moment of my adult life. When I told her I was adopting the children, she smiled and said, "Lorraine, that's beautiful. But are you sure you've thought this through? 3 children is a lot for one person." It seemed like concern then, caring even. By 2005, when the kids were settled and thriving, Vanessa had moved into a new position, Director of Community Outreach for a major nonprofit called Chicago Urban Hope. She called me one afternoon and said, "Lorraine, I've been watching the work you're doing with foster care advocacy. I want you to come work with me. We're starting a program for at-risk youth, and you'd be perfect to run it." The salary was nearly double what I was making at Child Services. It would mean I could give my kids things I'd never been able to afford: college funds, better clothes, family vacations. I said yes without hesitation. For the first 2 years, it was everything I'd dreamed of. The program, we called it Second Chances, helped hundreds of kids. We provided mentorship, educational support, job training. I was working 80-hour weeks, but I was changing lives. Tamika, Jerome, and Shanice were old enough to understand. They'd help me prepare care packages for the program kids on weekends. They'd come to our community events. "Mom," Tamika said one night, she was 17 by then, preparing for college applications, "you're doing what you did for us, but for hundreds of kids." That's amazing. But by 2008, things started shifting. Vanessa began making small comments during staff meetings. "Lorraine's very emotionally invested in the clients," she'd say with this tight little smile. "Sometimes I worry she has trouble maintaining professional boundaries." Or, "Lorraine's spending habits on the program are generous. We might need to discuss whether she's being fiscally responsible with donor funds." I'd try to defend myself. "I bought winter coats for 15 kids who didn't have any. We had the budget for it." "Did we?" Vanessa would reply, flipping through papers. "Or did you exceed the allocated amount and simply assume we'd cover the overage?" By 2010, the undermining became systematic. Every decision I made, Vanessa questioned. Every program expense required 3 layers of approval. She started having me submit weekly reports of my activities, something no other program director had to do. When I objected, she said, "Lorraine, you manage the largest budget of any program. This is standard oversight. Why are you being so defensive?" She made me responsible for outcomes I couldn't control. When graduation rates for our program kids didn't meet her arbitrary benchmarks, she'd shake her head in those board meetings and say, "I gave Lorraine every resource she asked for. I'm not sure why we're not seeing better results." But the resources weren't the issue. She'd started cutting my budget without telling me. I'd promise a kid we'd help with their college application fees, only to find out the money had been reallocated. I'd look like a liar, like I'd made promises I couldn't keep. "Lorraine," she'd say, her voice dripping with false sympathy, "I know you mean well, but you're making commitments we simply can't honor. You need to be more realistic." Then came the open cruelty. At the 2015 annual fundraising gala, Vanessa gave a speech about the success of second chances. She talked about the program's impact, the lives changed, the futures secured. She showed a video featuring kids I'd personally mentored. She thanked the donors and the board. She never mentioned my name. Not once. When someone asked afterward who ran the program, Vanessa smiled and said, "It's a team effort, but the vision and oversight come from my office." I confronted her the next day. I said, "Vanessa, I've run that program for 10 years. How could you not even mention me in that speech?" She looked at me with these cold eyes I'd never seen before. "Lorraine, you work for the program. You don't own it." Maybe if you spent less time seeking recognition and more time actually improving outcomes, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I started noticing other things. Emails I'd sent would mysteriously go missing from threads. Decisions I'd made would be questioned as if I'd acted without authorization, even though I had email proof of approval. When I'd bring up these inconsistencies, Vanessa would sigh and say, "Lorraine, I'm worried about your memory. You seem confused about our conversations. Are you feeling all right? Is the stress getting to be too much?" She was making me question my own sanity. By 2017, I barely recognized my work environment. Vanessa had hired a new deputy director, a man named Kenneth Grayson, who'd never worked with at-risk youth in his life, but happened to be Vanessa's former boyfriend. Together, they formed this united front against me. Every staff meeting felt like an ambush. "Lorraine," Kenneth would say, "several staff members have expressed concerns about your management style. They say you're too emotional, too personally involved with the clients." "Who said that?" I'd ask. "Let me address their concerns directly." "We need to protect their confidentiality," Vanessa would interrupt. "But Kenneth and I think it might be time to consider whether you're still the right fit for this role." I said, "I've given this program 10 years of my life. I've helped over 600 kids." "What are you talking about?" Vanessa leaned back in her chair and said, "Yes, Lorraine, and maybe that's the problem. Maybe you're burned out. Maybe you've lost your objectivity. Maybe it's time to step aside and let fresh leadership take over." That's when I should have seen it. That's when I should have known she was planning something, but I was so busy defending myself, so busy trying to prove I wasn't the problem, that I didn't see the trap being set. I didn't know that Vanessa had been planning my destruction for over a year. I didn't know that every questioned expense, every missing email, every undermined decision was being carefully documented to build a case against me. I didn't know that the woman I'd called my friend for 25 years was about to accuse me of the one thing that would destroy everything I'd built. But I was about to find out. It started with an email in March 2018. Subject line: "Administrative leave, pending investigation." I was sitting at my desk when it came through. My hands started shaking before I even opened it. Dear Ms. Webb, effective immediately. You are being placed on paid administrative leave pending an internal investigation into financial irregularities within the Second Chances program. You are required to surrender your building access credentials and refrain from contacting current program participants or staff members. This is standard protocol and should not be construed as an accusation of wrongdoing. I read it 3 times. Financial irregularities? I'd never even had my own credit card for the program. Every expense went through Vanessa's approval system. I called Vanessa immediately. What is this about? What irregularities? Her voice was cool, professional. Lorraine, I can't discuss details of an ongoing investigation, but I'm sure if there's been a misunderstanding, it will all be cleared up. Just cooperate with the auditors, and I'm sure everything will be fine. Cooperate with what auditors? Vanessa, talk to me. We've been friends for 25 years. There was a long pause. Then she said, Have we, Lorraine? Because friends don't steal from the organization that gave them everything. The line went dead. I sat there in my office, the office where I'd spent countless nights writing grant proposals, counseling heartbroken teenagers, celebrating acceptance letters to colleges, and I felt my whole world tilt sideways. What I believed it meant. A routine audit. Some paperwork issue. A mistake that would be cleared up in a few days. What it actually meant. Vanessa had been building a criminal case against me for 18 months. 2 weeks later, my lawyer, a public defender named Raymond Torres because I couldn't afford private counsel, showed me the investigative report. Lorraine, Raymond said, spreading documents across the conference table, this is bad. They're alleging systematic embezzlement over a 3-year period. They're saying you created fake vendors, approved fraudulent invoices, and funneled over $200,000 into personal accounts. That's insane, I said. I never had access to create vendors. Vanessa controlled all of that. Raymond's face was grim. According to their system logs, you did. They have records showing you logged into the financial management system and created 13 different vendor accounts. They have copies of invoices with your digital signature. They have bank statements showing deposits into an account with your name on it. Show me, I demanded. He slid a bank statement across the table. First National Bank. Account holder, Lorraine M. Webb. Over the past 3 years, deposits totaling $237,428. That's not my account, I whispered. I've never seen this account in my life. The bank confirmed it was opened with your social security number and a copy of your driver's license. My mind was racing. Raymond, someone forged this. Someone stole my identity. Can you prove that? And that's when I realized I couldn't. I had no proof. Vanessa had spent 18 months creating a paper trail that made me look guilty of everything she'd accused me of. How long had she been planning this? I asked. Raymond checked the dates. According to their documentation, the first suspicious transaction was in January 2016, over 2 years before they put you on leave. 2 years. For 2 years, while I'd been working 80-hour weeks, mentoring kids, fighting to keep the program funded, Vanessa had been systematically framing me for theft. I found out about Kenneth Grayson's real role on a Tuesday afternoon, in April. My daughter, Shanice, she was 24 by then, working as a paralegal, had been doing some digging on her own. She called me, her voice tight with anger. Mom, I need you to sit down. Shanice, I'm already sitting. What is it? Kenneth Grayson, Vanessa's deputy director. I looked into his background. And? He's not just her ex-boyfriend, he's a forensic accountant, specialized in financial fraud investigation. Before he came to Chicago Urban Hope, he worked for a firm that helped organizations build embezzlement cases for prosecution. The room started spinning. He was hired specifically to build this case against you, Mom. I pulled the board meeting minutes. Vanessa brought him on in July 2016, right after the first suspicious transaction in their timeline. She told the board they needed enhanced financial oversight, but his actual job was to create evidence that you were stealing. How do you know that? I asked. I found his LinkedIn messages. He's not very careful about his privacy settings. He messaged one of his former colleagues 6 months ago, said, and I quote, "Easiest consulting gig of my career. Client wanted a specific outcome. I made sure the numbers told the right story." I felt bile rise in my throat. She paid him to frame me. Yes, and Mom, it gets worse. The account they say is yours. It was opened by someone using your identity, but the IP address traces back to Kenneth's home office. He opened that account. He made those deposits. He created every piece of evidence they have against you. The next revelation came from an unexpected source. A former colleague named Patricia, the same Patricia who'd supervised me at Child Services 20 years earlier. She'd retired years ago, but still kept in touch with people in the nonprofit world. She showed up at my apartment unannounced one evening in May. "Lorraine, we need to talk," she said, her face grave. She sat at my kitchen table and pulled out her phone. "I've been hearing things. Disturbing things. Vanessa has been talking to people. A lot of people." "What kind of things?" Patricia scrolled through messages. "She's been positioning herself as your friend who tried to help you but couldn't save you from yourself. She's telling people you've had substance abuse problems for years." "What?" I nearly shouted. "I don't drink. I don't do drugs." "I know that, but she's saying you hid it well, that she covered for you multiple times, that she gave you chance after chance, but eventually the stealing became impossible to ignore." Patricia showed me screenshots of Facebook posts, email chains, text messages. Vanessa had been messaging former colleagues, board members, donors, anyone who knew me. One message to a board member read, "I feel so guilty. I knew Lorraine was struggling, but I never thought she'd actually steal from the kids she was supposed to help. I should have seen the signs earlier. I should have protected our organization." Another, to a major donor, "It breaks my heart. Lorraine was like a sister to me, but addiction is a disease and it made her do terrible things. I hope she gets the help she needs." "She's telling people I'm an addict?" I said, my voice breaking. "She's creating an alternate narrative," Patricia said. "One where you're a tragic figure who fell from grace, and she's the heartbroken friend who tried to save you. It makes her look compassionate while destroying your credibility." "Why?" I whispered. "Why would she do this to me?" Patricia hesitated. Then she said, "I did some research. Vanessa's been under investigation by the board for mismanagement of funds. Not you, her, for over a year. She's been using organizational resources for personal expenses, inflating her own salary, channeling money to consulting firms owned by her relatives. The board was getting ready to fire her and potentially press charges. So she framed me instead. She needed a scapegoat, someone the board would believe over her. And you were perfect. You managed the biggest budget. You had access to client funds, and you were so focused on the work that you didn't watch your back." I put my head in my hands. 25 years of friendship. 25 years. "She was never your friend, Lorraine. She was using you the whole time." The criminal charges were filed in June 2018. Federal embezzlement charges, 3 counts, each carrying a potential sentence of 5 to 10 years. My lawyer Raymond laid out what I was facing. Even if we go to trial and win, which is not guaranteed given the evidence they've manufactured, you're looking at hundreds of thousands in legal fees. Your reputation is destroyed. You'll never work in nonprofits again. "What about a plea deal?" I asked. "They're offering 7 years, serve 5 with good behavior. Full restitution of the alleged stolen funds plus penalties, roughly $400,000, and permanent prohibition from working with children or vulnerable populations." I can't pay $400,000. They'll garnish your wages for the rest of your life. They'll seize your assets, your apartment, your car, your retirement account. And Lorraine, there's something else. He slid another document across the table. Vanessa has filed a civil lawsuit against you personally. She's claiming the nonprofit's reputation has been damaged by your criminal activities and seeking $2 million in damages. $2 million. I couldn't breathe. I don't have $2 million. I don't have $2,000. My savings are gone. I've spent everything on legal fees already. If she wins the civil case, you'll be in debt for the rest of your life. You'll lose everything. Everything. My career, my reputation, my freedom, my children's college funds. I'd already had to liquidate those to pay for the lawyer. My retirement. My home. Vanessa hadn't just accused me of a crime. She'd systematically destroyed my entire life. The moment I learned the full extent of Vanessa's cruelty came on a humid July afternoon. I was at the courthouse for a pretrial hearing. Raymond had told me to wait in a conference room while he handled some procedural motions. I was sitting there, staring at nothing, when I heard voices in the hallway outside. The door wasn't fully closed, maybe 6 inches of gap. "Still can't believe you pulled it off," a man's voice was saying. "Kenneth Grayson. I told you it would work." Vanessa's voice. That familiar laugh that used to make me feel like we were in on some joke together. Lorraine's been so busy playing Mother Teresa that she never saw it coming. The fake accounts were genius using her credentials to set them up. Please. She practically handed me everything I needed. Did you know she keeps her passwords on a Post-it note in her desk drawer? Like a child. They were getting closer to the door. I should have announced myself, should have confronted them, but I was frozen, barely breathing. What's she looking at? Time-wise? Kenneth asked. With the charges we've stacked? 15 to 20 years minimum, and even if she somehow fights it, the legal fees alone will bankrupt her. Plus the civil suit, she'll die in debt. You really hate her that much? There was a pause. When Vanessa spoke again, her voice was cold, in a way I'd never heard before. She made me look bad, Kenneth. For years. Every time a board member praised the Second Chances program, they were really praising her. Every time donors wrote checks, they mentioned her by name. She was the face of the organization's biggest success story, and I was just, what? The administrator who signed off on her budgets? So this is about ego? This is about justice, Vanessa snapped. I built Chicago Urban Hope. I brought in tens of millions in funding. I created the infrastructure that allowed her little program to exist. But did I get recognition? No. Everyone acted like Lorraine Webb was some kind of saint, saving the children of Chicago single-handedly. To be fair, her program did have impressive outcomes. Because I gave her the resources. Because I protected her from the board when they wanted to cut her budget. I made her, Kenneth. And she couldn't even be grateful. She couldn't even acknowledge that everything she accomplished was because I allowed it. My hands were shaking so hard, I had to grip the edge of the table. Well, Kenneth said, at least the trial should be entertaining. Can you imagine her showing up in court? Probably in some thrift store suit, looking all pitiful and broke. It'll be satisfying to watch the jury reject her sympathy play. Oh, I'm counting on it, Vanessa said. I've already planted enough stories about her substance abuse and mental health issues that even if she takes the stand, no one will believe her. She'll look desperate and delusional. Perfect. What about her kids? The ones she adopted? Vanessa laughed. Actually laughed. What about them? One's in grad school, one's a paralegal, one's teaching. They're all too busy with their own lives to save Mommy. And even if they wanted to help, what could they do? They're nobodies. They have no influence, no connections, no power. I heard the oldest one, Tamika, has been trying to get journalists interested in the story. Let her try. I've already talked to every major outlet in Chicago. They know Lorraine's a thief. They're not interested in some sob story about her foster kids defending her. That's exactly the kind of emotional manipulation Lorraine would use. Their footsteps moved away down the hall. I sat in that conference room, tears streaming down my face, and realized the full scope of what I was up against. Vanessa hadn't just stolen my career and my savings. She'd stolen my narrative. She'd made sure that even if I told the truth, no one would believe me. She'd poisoned every well, burned every bridge, and made it impossible for me to fight back. And she'd done it all while pretending to be my friend. The invitation arrived 3 weeks before my trial was set to begin. A cream-colored envelope, expensive paper, elegant calligraphy. The Chicago Urban Hope 20th Anniversary Gala. Join us as we celebrate 2 decades of transforming lives and building futures. Inside was a handwritten note on Vanessa's personal stationery. Lorraine, despite everything, I wanted to extend an invitation to you. Second Chances was once a significant part of our organization's work, and your contributions, before recent events, deserve acknowledgement. I think closure might be healing for both of us. I hope you'll attend. Vanessa. I showed it to Raymond. This is a trap, right? He studied the invitation. Almost certainly. She wants you there looking defeated. She'll probably have press there, board members, donors. It's a chance for her to parade her victory in front of everyone who matters. So I shouldn't go. Raymond shrugged. That's your call. But if you do go, go knowing she's expecting you to look broken. Don't give her that satisfaction. I looked at that invitation for a long time that night. My trial was scheduled for September 15th. The gala was September 1st. In 2 weeks, I'd be standing in front of a jury, watching my life get dismantled piece by piece by a woman who'd spent 2 years manufacturing evidence against me. My children, my beautiful, brilliant children, who I'd raised from that cardboard box to college degrees and promising careers, were using every resource they had to help me. Tamika had taken a leave of absence from her PhD program in psychology to coordinate my defense. Jerome had liquidated his savings account to hire a forensic accountant to review the evidence. Shanice was working 18-hour days at her law firm, researching precedents, building strategies. But we were losing. The evidence against me was overwhelming because it had been designed to be overwhelming. Vanessa had thought of everything. I was going to prison. I was going to lose everything, and there was nothing I could do about it. I looked at my reflection in the bathroom mirror that night. 52 years old. Gray hair I could no longer afford to color. Lines around my eyes from 2 decades of late nights worrying about other people's children. Circles under those eyes from months of crying myself to sleep. You should go, I told my reflection. Go to that gala. Let her see that she hasn't broken you, even if she has. But the truth was, I didn't know if I had the strength to face her. I didn't know if I could walk into a room full of people who believed I was a thief and a liar and hold my head up. I didn't know if I had anything left to fight with. That was my lowest point. Standing in my bathroom at 2 a.m. holding an invitation to my own public humiliation, knowing that the woman who'd destroyed me was going to win. But I didn't know something. I didn't know that my children, those 3 babies I'd found shivering in a cardboard box 25 years earlier, had been planning something of their own. I didn't know that Tamika had been making phone calls to every major forensic accounting firm in the country. I didn't know that Jerome had been quietly interviewing every single person who'd ever worked at Chicago Urban Hope, recording their stories, documenting Vanessa's pattern of manipulation and fraud. I didn't know that Shanice had been building a case so airtight, so meticulously researched, that it would make law school textbooks. I didn't know that the 3 children I'd saved were about to save me right back. But that's when everything changed. The intervention came from Tamika on a Thursday morning, exactly 1 week before the trial. She showed up at my apartment at 7 a.m. with coffee and bagels, let herself in with her key, and found me still in bed, staring at the ceiling. I hadn't slept. Again. "Mom," she said, setting the coffee on my nightstand. "Get up. We need to talk." "Tamika, I can't do this today. Get up." Her voice had that tone, the one she'd used when she was 8 years old protecting her siblings in a cardboard box. The tone that said she wasn't taking no for an answer. I sat up. She handed me the coffee. "You've given up," she said flatly. "I can see it in your eyes. You think you're going to prison, so you've already surrendered. The evidence is fabricated. We know that. You know that. But you've stopped believing anyone else will see the truth." Tears started sliding down my cheeks. "Tamika, what am I supposed to do? She's thought of everything. She has bank records, transaction logs, witness statements. She spent 2 years building this case. What do I have? My word against a mountain of manufactured evidence." Tamika sat on the edge of my bed, took my hands in hers, and looked me dead in the eyes. "You have us, Mom. You have 3 people who know exactly who you are because you showed us when we were children that love isn't about blood. It's about showing up. It's about fighting for people even when it costs you everything. You fought for us when we were nobody. Now we're going to fight for you. You can't save me from this. Watch us." She pulled out her phone and showed me a video call screen. Jerome and Shanice were both on it. "Mom," Jerome said. He was in his office at the tech startup where he worked as a data analyst. "Remember when I was 10 and I told you I wanted to be good with computers? You bought me that used laptop even though it cost a whole month's grocery budget. You believed in me before I believed in myself." "Jerome, that was different." "I've been using those skills, Mom. I've been inside Chicago Urban Hope server logs, and I found something Vanessa didn't know existed. Automatic backup systems that archive every login, every file creation, every keystroke. The system administrators don't even know they're there. They're fail-safes built into the software." My heart started beating faster. "What did you find?" "Every fake vendor account created from Kenneth Grayson's IP address. Every fraudulent invoice uploaded from Vanessa's office computer. Every transaction that's supposed to prove you stole money. Originated from machines you never touched. I have time-stamped logs proving you were in completely different locations when these crimes supposedly occurred." Shanice leaned into the camera. "And Mom, I've been deposing former employees under subpoena. 12 people who've left Chicago Urban Hope in the past 3 years. Every single one of them has a story about Vanessa pressuring them to lie about you, threatening their references if they didn't cooperate, offering them bonuses if they'd signed statements against you." "We have proof," Tamika said. "Real, documented, courtroom admissible proof that Vanessa framed you. But we need you to fight. We need you to walk into that courtroom believing you're going to win. Because you are." I looked at my children, these 3 incredible human beings who'd survived the worst the world could throw at them and still had the courage to fight for someone else. "You're not a thief," Tamika continued. "You're not an addict. You're not confused or desperate or any of the things Vanessa has tried to make people believe. You're the woman who saw 3 freezing children in a cardboard box and didn't just feel sorry for us. You restructured your entire life to make room for us. That's who you are. And we're not letting Vanessa Pritchard rewrite that story." Sitting in my bedroom, holding that coffee cup with my 3 children surrounding me through screens and physical presence, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. Vanessa had made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated the seeds she helped me plant. She'd assumed that 3 street children I'd adopted would stay powerless, would stay in the background, would never amount to anything that could challenge her. She'd forgotten that love is the most powerful force in the universe, and that people who've been saved tend to become the fiercest protectors of those who saved them. The next day, I did something I hadn't done in months. I got dressed in real clothes, did my hair, and walked out of my apartment with my head up. Tamika had made arrangements I didn't fully understand at first. "We need to prep you for trial," she said. "And we need to do it away from Chicago, somewhere Vanessa and her lawyers can't watch what we're doing." We drove 4 hours to a cabin in Wisconsin that belonged to Jerome's boss, a man who'd heard my story and offered to help however he could. For 1 week, my children and I worked around the clock. Jerome taught me how to read forensic computer logs, how to understand IP addresses and digital timestamps. You need to be able to explain this to a jury, Mom, not as a tech expert, but as someone who understands she was set up. Shanice drilled me on testimony. "Vanessa's lawyer is going to try to shake you. He's going to insinuate that you're lying, that you're desperate, that you'll say anything to stay out of prison. We need you to stay calm, stay factual, and never get emotional, even when he's trying to make you angry." Tamika worked with me on a different kind of preparation, the psychological kind. "Vanessa weaponized your kindness, Mom. She made you believe that caring too much was a weakness. But it's not. It's your superpower. Every kid you helped, every family you fought for, every extra hour you worked, that's evidence of who you really are. Don't hide from that. Own it." We reviewed every piece of evidence, every transaction, every email, every witness statement. By the end of that week, I could recite dates and details in my sleep. But more importantly, I understood something I hadn't before. This wasn't just about proving I didn't steal money. This was about exposing a pattern of abuse that went far beyond me. Jerome had found 7 other employees Vanessa had targeted over the years. People who'd been forced out, accused of incompetence, had their reputations destroyed. The pattern was identical every time. Vanessa would identify someone who was too successful, too beloved, too much of a threat to her ego, then she'd systematically dismantle them. I was just the first one she'd tried to send to prison. "We're not just defending you," Shanice explained. "We're taking her down. Completely. By the time this trial is over, Vanessa Pritchard is going to be the one facing federal charges." On our last night at the cabin, we sat around the fireplace, the 4 of us, like we'd done 1,000 times when they were kids. Tamika said, "Mom, I need you to understand some things. Really understand them, because Vanessa spent years making you doubt yourself, and you need to undo that damage before you walk into that courtroom." She pulled out a notebook. She'd always been the one who wrote things down, who documented and organized. "You are not too emotional. Vanessa told you that caring too much about the kids was unprofessional. But you know what? The kids you cared too much about? 83% of them graduated high school. 71% went to college or vocational training. 56% are now in stable careers. The national average for foster youth? 28% graduate high school. Your emotional involvement saved lives, Mom. It wasn't a weakness. It was why you succeeded." Jerome added, "You're not bad with money. Vanessa made you think you were fiscally irresponsible, but I reviewed every single expense you submitted over 10 years. You know what I found? You consistently came in under budget. You used your own money to cover gaps rather than request more funding. You bought supplies with your personal credit card and never submitted for reimbursement. If anything, you were too generous with your own resources, not the organization's." Shanice pulled up documents on her laptop. "And you're not alone. Vanessa isolated you. She made you think no one would believe you, that you had no support, that you were fighting this battle by yourself. But Mom, I've received over 300 emails from people you've helped over the years. Former clients, former colleagues, community members. They're all willing to testify about your character. 300 people, Mom. Vanessa said you were nobody, but you've touched 300 lives deeply enough that they're willing to stand up in court for you." I couldn't stop crying. "I wasn't worthless," I whispered. "You were never worthless," Tamika said firmly. "Vanessa projected her own insecurities onto you. She's the one who needed to steal credit for other people's work to feel valuable. She's the one who had to destroy people to feel powerful. She's the one who couldn't stand watching someone else succeed because it made her feel inadequate. Everything she accused you of being, Jerome said, that's what she actually is. And we're going to prove it, Shanice finished. The vindication started coming in pieces, but the most important piece arrived 3 days before the trial. Tamika got a call from a lawyer in New York, a woman named Christina Bell, who specialized in nonprofit fraud cases. Christina had read about my case and saw patterns she recognized. Ms. Webb, Christina said when we got on a conference call, I've been investigating Vanessa Pritchard for 6 months. Not for your case, for another case. A nonprofit in New York that she worked with briefly in 2012. They discovered financial irregularities after she left, but they couldn't prove she was responsible. The trail went cold. What changed? I asked. Your children contacted me. They showed me the digital forensics your son uncovered. And suddenly, the patterns clicked. Ms. Webb, Vanessa Pritchard has been doing this for 15 years. She's a serial fraud artist. She attaches herself to successful nonprofit programs, embezzles funds, then frames someone else when audits get too close. You're the 4th person she's done this to. My blood ran cold. 4th? I've located the other 3 victims. One served 2 years in federal prison before new evidence exonerated him. But by then, his career was destroyed. Another took a plea deal because she couldn't afford to fight. The 3rd committed suicide. I felt sick. But here's what's different about your case, Christina continued. You have something the others didn't. You have a digital paper trail that's absolutely irrefutable. Your son found the original source files for every fraudulent transaction. We can prove, beyond any shadow of doubt, that Vanessa created this evidence. And more than that, we can prove she's done it before. Serial fraud, Ms. Webb. That's a federal RICO charge. She's not looking at a slap on the wrist. She's looking at 20 to 30 years. Can you help us? Tamika asked. I'm already on a plane to Chicago, Christina said, and I'm bringing 5 associates, 3 forensic accountants, and enough evidence to bury Vanessa Pritchard so deep she'll never see daylight again. After the call ended, I sat in stunned silence. Mom, Jerome said quietly, Vanessa told Kenneth that we were nobodies, that we had no power, no influence, no connections. She was wrong, Shanice said, because we didn't need power or influence. We just needed to be willing to fight for you the way you fought for us. We needed to use the skills you helped us develop, the education you sacrificed to give us, the confidence you built in us, the work ethic you modeled for us every single day. She created her own enemy, Tamika said. Every time she undermined you, every time she questioned your worth, every time she tried to make you feel small, we were watching. We were learning what real strength looks like. We were understanding what it means to fight for people you love. And now, Jerome said, with a smile that reminded me of the determined little 6-year-old in a cardboard box, we're going to show her exactly what happens when you mess with our mother. For the first time in months, I smiled too. Vanessa thought she was destroying a weak, isolated woman with no resources and no allies. But she'd actually declared war on a family that had survived homelessness, foster care, systemic poverty, and discrimination. A family that knew how to fight, because fighting was how we'd survived. A family that understood that love isn't just a feeling, it's a weapon you wield to protect the people who matter most. The trial started in 4 days, and Vanessa Pritchard had no idea what was coming for her. The morning of September 1st, 14 days before my trial was scheduled to begin, I woke up to find Tamika sitting at my kitchen table with that cream-colored invitation in her hand. You're going to the gala, she said. It wasn't a question. Tamika, I don't think. Mom, we've spent a week preparing for trial. Christina Bell and her team have built a case so airtight that Vanessa's own lawyers are going to want to flip on her. We have digital forensics, witness testimony, pattern evidence from 3 other victims. We have everything we need to destroy her in court. So why go to the gala? Tamika smiled. That fierce smile that told me she had a plan. Because Vanessa invited you there to humiliate you. She wants you to show up looking defeated, broken, desperate. She wants to parade her victory in front of Chicago's nonprofit elite. She wants to cement the narrative that you're a pathetic thief who got what she deserved. And we're going to give her something different, Jerome said, walking in from the bedroom where he'd apparently been waiting. He was holding a garment bag. Shanice came in behind him, carrying a makeup case and hair supplies. We're going to give her a preview of what's coming in court. We're going to let her think she's won, right up until the moment she realizes she's lost everything. I looked at my 3 children, these brilliant, strategic, fierce protectors, and I understood. We're going to the gala as a family, I said. As a family that's about to change the narrative, Tamika confirmed. By the time we leave that event, everyone in Chicago's nonprofit world is going to know something is very wrong with Vanessa's story. And in 2 weeks, when we walk into that courtroom, they're going to be ready to believe the truth. I looked at the invitation again, at Vanessa's elegant handwriting, at her assumption that I'd show up broken and alone. Actually, I said, feeling strength I hadn't felt in months, I think I am going to go. The Chicago Urban Hope. 20th Anniversary Gala was held at the Peninsula Hotel, one of the most prestigious venues in the city. When we pulled up in Jerome's car, a Tesla Model S that his tech startup salary had afforded him, I could see Vanessa's face through the hotel's glass front doors. She was greeting guests in a burgundy gown that probably cost more than I used to make in a month. Her hair was perfect. Her smile was perfect. She looked like success personified. Then she saw us. Tamika had taken me shopping, or rather, she'd taken me to a designer she knew who owed her a favor from her psychology research consulting. The navy blue dress I wore was elegant, but professional. My hair, styled by Shanice's friend who worked at a high-end salon, was natural and beautiful, embracing the silver instead of hiding it. I wore minimal jewelry, just the simple gold necklace my mother had given me and small pearl earrings. But the real power wasn't in what I wore. It was in who walked beside me. Tamika, now 28 years old, had her PhD candidacy and wore a black dress with her doctoral hood draped over her shoulders, a subtle but unmistakable symbol of academic achievement. She'd been quoted in the New York Times for her research on childhood trauma and resilience. Jerome, 26, wore a perfectly tailored suit and had his company's CFO on his arm, a woman named Lisa Chen, who'd wanted to attend to show support. Jerome had built a data analytics platform that had been acquired for $8 million. He'd made the Forbes 30 Under 30 list that year. Shanice, 24, wore her law firm's colors. She'd just been offered early partnership track at one of Chicago's most prestigious civil rights firms. She'd successfully argued a case before the Illinois Supreme Court 3 months earlier. We walked through those doors like we owned the place. The conversations in the hotel lobby didn't just stop. They evaporated. 200 people in formal wear, champagne glasses frozen halfway to lips, staring at the woman who was supposed to arrive broken and the 3 nobody children who'd somehow become extraordinary. Vanessa's champagne glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the marble floor. Kenneth Grayson, standing beside her, went pale as a sheet. "Good evening, Vanessa," I said, my voice steady and clear. "Thank you so much for the invitation. We wouldn't have missed this for the world." The gala was in the hotel's grand ballroom, and within 15 minutes of our arrival, we'd become the center of attention. Not because we were seeking it, but because people couldn't stop staring. A board member named Harold Chen approached first. He'd always been kind to me during my years at Second Chances. "Lorraine," he said, his voice confused but not unkind. We heard you were facing serious charges. Are you all right?" "I'm doing well, Harold. Thank you for asking." He looked at my children. "And these are—" "My children," I said proudly. "Tamika, Jerome, and Shanice. You might remember them from some of the program events years ago." "Of course," Harold said, though he looked like he was trying to reconcile the professional adults in front of him with whatever narrative he'd been told. "But Lorraine, the charges against you will be addressed in court," Shanice interrupted smoothly, extending her hand. "Shanice Webb, civil rights attorney at Morrison and Fletcher. I'm part of my mother's defense team. We're very much looking forward to trial." Harold blinked. "You're her lawyer?" "One of them," Shanice said. "We have quite a comprehensive team. Christina Bell from New York is lead counsel. Perhaps you've heard of her. She specializes in nonprofit fraud cases. She's had a perfect record of not just exonerating her clients, but prosecuting the actual perpetrators." I watched Harold's face shift as he processed that information. "Prosecuting the actual perpetrators?" "Fascinating cases," Jerome added, joining the conversation. "I've been doing data analytics on nonprofit embezzlement patterns. Did you know that serial fraud artists often use the same digital fingerprints across multiple organizations? They think they're covering their tracks, but modern forensic technology can trace patterns going back years, sometimes decades." A small crowd was gathering now, ostensibly looking at the silent auction items nearby, but clearly listening to our conversation. "I don't understand," Harold said. "Vanessa told the board that the evidence against you was overwhelming." "Oh, there's overwhelming evidence of embezzlement," Tamika said, her voice carrying that psychology professor tone, authoritative but not condescending. "The question isn't whether money was stolen. The question is who actually stole it." "Are you suggesting—" Harold started. "We're not suggesting anything," I said calmly. "We're simply preparing to present facts in court. Digital forensics, IP addresses, timestamps, server logs, witness testimony from 4 other nonprofits where similar patterns occurred. The kind of evidence that doesn't rely on narrative or emotion, just data." Across the room, I saw Vanessa watching us, her face tight with barely controlled rage. Kenneth was whispering frantically in her ear. A donor named Patricia Sullivan approached next. She'd contributed over $1 million to Chicago Urban Hope over the years. "Lorraine Webb," she said, her voice cold. "I'm surprised you'd show your face here, given what you've done." "Mrs. Sullivan," I replied evenly, "I appreciate your support of Chicago Urban Hope over the years. Your donations helped hundreds of children through the Second Chances program." "The program you stole from." "Actually," Jerome interjected, pulling out his phone, "may I show you something? I've been analyzing the program's financial records. This is a graph of program outcomes versus budget allocation over 12 years. He showed her the screen. "See how outcomes improved dramatically between 2008 and 2016. That's when my mother was running the program. Then see this sharp decline starting in 2017? That's after she was placed on administrative leave, and Kenneth Grayson took over financial oversight." Patricia looked at the graph, confused. "I don't understand what this proves." "It proves that under my mother's management, Second Chances operated at 98% efficiency, meaning 98 cents of every dollar went directly to program services. Under the current management structure, that number has dropped to 64%. Someone is siphoning off 34 cents of every dollar donated." "But the audit showed," Patricia began. "The audit showed what someone wanted it to show," Shanice said. "Mrs. Sullivan, I've subpoenaed the digital records of that audit. Would you like to know who had edit access to the financial database During the audit period? Not my mother. Her access was revoked when she was placed on leave. But Kenneth Grayson and Vanessa Pritchard both had full administrative access. They could create, modify, and delete any records they wanted. The crowd around us had grown, at least 30 people now, all listening with rapt attention. Another board member, Thomas Reed, pushed forward. "Are you accusing Vanessa of framing you?" "I'm stating facts," I said simply. "Fact. I never had access to create vendor accounts in the financial system." Fact. The fraudulent accounts were created from IP addresses that trace to locations I've never been. Fact. During the time period when I allegedly made these fraudulent transactions, I was documented in other locations. We have security footage, email timestamps, even GPS data from my phone. "Why didn't you present this evidence before?" Thomas demanded. "Because we've spent months gathering it," Tamika said. "Forensic investigations take time, especially when you're not just proving innocence. You're establishing a pattern of repeated criminal behavior across multiple organizations spanning 15 years. You could have heard a pin drop in that ballroom. 15 years, Patricia whispered. 3 documented cases before my mother, Shanice confirmed. One victim served prison time before being exonerated. Another took a plea deal because she couldn't afford adequate defense. The third committed suicide. All 3 cases show identical patterns. Successful program directors, beloved by staff and clients, accused of embezzlement with manufactured evidence, while the actual embezzler moved on to the next organization. Kenneth Grayson was moving toward us now, his face flushed with anger. "This is slander. You can't make accusations like this without proof." Jerome smiled, that brilliant, dangerous smile. "Actually, Mr. Grayson, we can, because we have the server logs showing you accessed the financial database from your home IP address to create accounts in my mother's name. We have your own LinkedIn messages to former colleagues bragging about making numbers tell the right story. We have testimony from IT administrators who can confirm that you requested specific backdoor access to systems that would allow you to create audit trails that appeared to originate from other users." Kenneth's face went from red to white in seconds. "And Mr. Grayson," Shanice added, her voice sharp as a blade, "we have the account you opened at First National Bank using my mother's identity, the account where the stolen money was deposited. You know how we know it was you? Because when you opened that account, you had to appear in person with identification, and banks have security cameras. We have footage of you, Mr. Grayson, opening an account in my mother's name with a forged driver's license." That's impossible," Kenneth stammered. "It's on video," Jerome said. "Time-stamped, date-stamped, archived in the bank's security system. You opened that account on January 18, 2016, at 2:47 p.m. at the State Street branch. You wore a gray suit and carried a brown leather briefcase. The teller who served you has identified you in a photo lineup." The crowd had swelled now. Easily 50 people, maybe more. And every single one of them was staring at Kenneth Grayson and Vanessa Pritchard with dawning horror. Vanessa finally pushed through the crowd, her carefully composed mask cracking. "How dare you?" she hissed at me. "How dare you come here and spread these lies?" I looked at her. This woman I'd called my friend for 25 years. This woman who'd systematically destroyed my life while smiling to my face. "Vanessa," I said quietly, "thank you." She blinked, confused. "What?" "Thank you for putting me on administrative leave so I had time to discover what you'd been doing. Thank you for framing me so incompetently that my children were able to trace every single fraudulent transaction back to you. Thank you for underestimating them so completely that you never imagined they'd be capable of fighting back." "You can't prove any of this," Vanessa said, but her voice wavered. "We can prove all of it," Tamika said. We have digital forensics that will stand up to any scrutiny. We have witness testimony from 7 former Chicago Urban Hope employees who you threatened, coerced, or bribed into providing false statements. We have pattern evidence from 3 other organizations where you pulled the exact same scheme. We have financial records showing you've embezzled over $1.2 million across 15 years. And Vanessa, I continued, thank you for telling Kenneth that my children were nobodies with no power or influence. Because that underestimation? That's what allowed them to build this case without you noticing. While you were busy celebrating your victory, they were quietly gathering every piece of evidence needed to destroy you. The crowd pressed closer. Board members, donors, staff members, everyone who'd believed Vanessa's lies, now hearing the truth. You threw me away, I said, my voice stronger now. You decided I was disposable, that I was weak and alone and could be sacrificed to cover your crimes. But you forgot something crucial, Vanessa. You forgot that I wasn't alone. I had 3 children who I saved from a cardboard box 25 years ago. Children who grew up watching me fight for people nobody else cared about. Children who learned that love means standing up for people even when it costs you everything. This is ridiculous, Vanessa snapped, but she was backing away now. Is it? Shanice pulled out her phone. Because I have Christina Bell on speed dial. She's already filed motions with the federal prosecutor. By Monday morning, there will be new charges filed in my mother's case. Not against her, against you. Federal embezzlement. Identity theft. Wire fraud. Conspiracy. RICO charges for running a criminal enterprise across multiple states. You're looking at 25 to 30 years, Vanessa. You're bluffing, Kenneth said, but his voice cracked. Actually, a new voice said from the ballroom entrance, they're not. Christina Bell walked into the room like an avenging angel in a power suit. She was flanked by 2 federal agents. Vanessa Pritchard and Kenneth Grayson, Christina said, her voice carrying across the silent ballroom. I'm Christina Bell, representing Lorraine Webb. These agents are here as a courtesy. I wanted to give you both the opportunity to cooperate with the federal investigation before charges are formally filed tomorrow morning. Vanessa's face crumbled. This isn't happening. Oh, it's happening, Christina said. Your pattern of fraud is so well documented at this point that 3 U.S. attorneys' offices are coordinating prosecution. You don't get to frame one more innocent person. You don't get to destroy one more career. You don't get to walk away from this. The board members were converging on Harold Chen now, their faces furious and panicked. Did you know about this? Patricia Sullivan demanded. I had no idea, Harold said, looking genuinely shaken. Vanessa presented evidence that seemed irrefutable. She said Lorraine had a substance abuse problem that she'd been covering for her for years. She lied, Thomas Reed said flatly. He turned to me. Ms. Webb, on behalf of the board, I need to apologize. We failed you. We failed to do due diligence. We failed to question the narrative we were given. And we'd like to make this right, Patricia added. Immediately. Whatever you need, legal fees, back pay, damages, we'll make sure Chicago Urban Hope covers it. I looked at these board members who'd believed I was a thief just an hour ago, who'd been ready to watch me go to prison, who'd never questioned Vanessa's story because it was easier to believe one woman was corrupt than to admit they'd been fooled. What I need, I said carefully, is for you to commission an independent audit. Not just of my time at Second Chances, but of Chicago Urban Hope's entire financial history. I need you to find out how many other people Vanessa destroyed. I need you to contact those victims and make restitution. I need you to ensure this never happens again. Done, Harold said immediately. Consider it done. Vanessa was crying now. Real tears, not the crocodile tears she'd perfected over the years. Lorraine, please, we were friends. For 25 years. You can't do this to me. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt something unexpected. Pity. We were never friends, Vanessa. I was useful to you, and when I became more successful than you could tolerate, you decided to destroy me. But you know what the saddest part is? If you'd actually been my friend, if you'd celebrated my success instead of resenting it, you could have been part of something beautiful. Instead, you spent 15 years tearing people down, stealing money, ruining lives. And for what? To feed an ego that was never going to be satisfied? I turned to my children. We should go. We have a trial to prepare for. Actually, Christina said, there won't be a trial. I've already spoken with the federal prosecutor. All charges against Ms. Webb are being dropped. The indictment will be dismissed with prejudice tomorrow morning. Vanessa and Kenneth will be the ones facing trial. The ballroom erupted in whispers and gasps. I looked at Tamika, Jerome, and Shanice, my 3 children who'd orchestrated this entire evening, who'd turned Vanessa's attempted humiliation into her own exposure, who'd fought for me the way I'd once fought for them. Let's go home, I said. We walked out of that ballroom with our heads high, leaving Vanessa Pritchard standing in the ruins of her carefully constructed lies, finally facing the consequences of her cruelty. Behind us, I heard Patricia Sullivan say to the board, "We need to rename the Second Chances program, in honor of what it should have been called all along, the Lorraine Webb Program for Youth Success." I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't destroying your enemy. It's building something so beautiful, so strong, so meaningful that when they try to tear it down, the foundation you built rises up to protect you. And that foundation, mine, was built on love, on 3 children in a cardboard box who became 3 warriors, willing to fight for their mother. Vanessa Pritchard thought she was ending my story, but she never understood that my story was never about me. It was about them. And their story was just beginning. 6 months later, I stood in that same courtroom where I'd once sat in an orange jumpsuit, watching my life disintegrate. But this time, I was wearing a navy blue suit, sitting in the gallery, watching Vanessa Pritchard receive her sentence. 28 years in federal prison. Kenneth Grayson got 18. The judge, that same Judge Morrison who'd presided over my case, looked at Vanessa with disgust as he delivered his ruling. Ms. Pritchard, in my 30 years on the bench, I have rarely seen such calculated cruelty. You didn't just steal money, though you stole plenty of that. You stole people's lives, their reputations, their futures. You weaponized the justice system itself to destroy innocent people, and you did it all while pretending to serve the most vulnerable members of our community. Vanessa didn't cry this time. She just stared straight ahead, her face empty. As the marshals led her away in handcuffs, she looked at me one last time. I don't know what she expected to see. Anger, triumph, vindication, maybe. But all I felt was a profound sadness for the person she could have been if she hadn't been consumed by jealousy and ego. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Tamika, Jerome, and Shanice formed a protective circle around me as cameras flashed and microphones were thrust forward. "Ms. Webb, how does it feel to be exonerated? Ms. Webb, will you sue Chicago Urban Hope for wrongful prosecution? Ms. Webb, what do you want people to know about your case?" I took a breath and stepped forward. Vanessa Pritchard spent so much time and energy trying to destroy me that she never realized she was actually freeing me to become someone extraordinary. Not because of any achievement of my own, but because her cruelty revealed something I'd always known, but sometimes forgot. That family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when your world is falling apart. I looked at my 3 children standing beside me. 25 years ago, I found 3 children in a cardboard box. Everyone told me I was making a mistake, that I was too young, too poor, too single to raise 3 kids. They said I'd ruin my career, sacrifice my future, destroy my life. And you know what? They were right about one thing. My life did change completely. It changed because those 3 children taught me what real strength looks like. They taught me that survival isn't about having resources. It's about refusing to give up. They taught me that love isn't a feeling you have. It's a choice you make every single day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Vanessa tried to write a story where I was weak, where I was alone, where I was disposable. She tried to make me believe that my kindness was a character flaw, that my compassion was a liability, that caring too much would be my downfall. But stories can be rewritten by people who refuse to accept someone else's narrative about their worth. I looked directly into the cameras, thinking about all the people watching who might be facing their own battles, their own betrayals, their own moments of feeling worthless. If you've ever been told you're not enough, if you've ever been discarded by someone who was supposed to support you, if you've ever been made to feel broken by someone else's cruelty, if you've ever wondered whether your kindness makes you weak, whether your compassion makes you a target, whether caring too much will destroy you. I paused, feeling the weight of everything I'd survived. Remember this: your value doesn't decrease based on someone's inability to see it. The people who try to diminish you are usually the ones most threatened by your light. They attack your strengths and call them weaknesses because they don't have those strengths themselves. Vanessa Pritchard saw my compassion as something she could exploit. She saw my dedication as obsession. She saw my success as a threat. And she tried to turn all of those things into weapons against me. But here's what she didn't understand. When you build your life on genuine service to others, when you invest in people instead of power, when you plant seeds of love instead of manipulation, you create something that can't be destroyed by lies. You create a foundation that holds you up when everything else falls apart. Tamika squeezed my hand. I spent 6 months believing I would lose everything: my freedom, my home, my reputation, my future. And in a way, I did lose some of those things. I lost my naivety. I lost my assumption that good people who work hard will always be protected by the system. I lost my belief that kindness is always rewarded. But I gained something infinitely more valuable. I gained the absolute certainty that the love I gave came back to me when I needed it most, not from the people I expected, not from the organization I served or the friend I trusted, but from 3 children who remembered what I did for them when they were powerless and refused to let me face my darkest moment alone. Hit that like button if you believe that the love you give into the world comes back to you in ways you can't always predict. Subscribe for more stories about people who refuse to let someone else's cruelty define their future, who understand that real power comes from lifting others up, not tearing them down. Because here's what I know now: the people who try to destroy you are usually trying to eliminate competition they've created in their own minds. They're fighting battles with themselves, and you're just collateral damage in their war with their own inadequacy. The best thing you can do isn't to destroy them back. It's to keep being who you are, keep caring, keep fighting for what's right, keep showing up for people who need you. Because that authenticity, that consistency, that genuine service, that builds armies of people who will fight for you when you can't fight for yourself. Comment below if you've ever had people underestimate you or the people you love. Share this story if you believe that sometimes the greatest revenge is simply living well and proving all the doubters wrong. And remember, the seeds you plant today might grow into the forest that shelters you tomorrow. I took one final breath and looked directly into the camera. Vanessa Pritchard thought she was ending my story when she accused me of embezzlement, when she manufactured evidence against me, when she tried to send me to prison for crimes she committed. She thought she was erasing me, eliminating competition, clearing the path for her own success. But she was actually just giving me permission to write a better story, one where I learned who my real family was, one where I discovered that the children I saved became the heroes who saved me, one where love and loyalty and truth proved more powerful than lies and manipulation and greed. She tried to take everything from me, my career, my freedom, my reputation, my future, and for 6 months I believed she had succeeded. I believed I was going to lose it all. What she actually did was prove that everything I'd built, every relationship, every investment in another human being, every moment I chose compassion over self-interest, all of that was real. All of that mattered. All of that came back to protect me when I needed it most. I looked at Tamika, who'd put her PhD program on hold to coordinate my defense. At Jerome, who'd used his technical genius to uncover the truth. At Shanice, who'd fought for me with the same fierce determination I'd once used to fight for her. 25 years ago, people told me I was making a mistake when I adopted 3 street children. They said I was sacrificing my future for kids who would never appreciate what I'd done for them. They said I'd regret choosing those children over my own comfort and security. They were wrong. Those 3 children didn't just appreciate what I did, they multiplied it. They took the love and opportunity I gave them and transformed it into strength and skills and determination that saved my life. Vanessa Pritchard destroyed 4 people before me. She sent 1 person to prison, broke another with a plea deal, and drove a 3rd to suicide. She built a 15-year career on lies and theft, and destroyed lives. She was good at it. She was careful. She was calculating. But she made one crucial mistake. She attacked someone who had invested 25 years in 3 people who understood what it meant to be thrown away, who knew what it felt like to be dismissed as worthless, who remembered what it was like when one person decided they were worth saving. She thought they were nobody. She thought they had no power. She thought she could destroy me without consequences. She was wrong. I smiled then, a real smile, full of genuine happiness. And that, my friends, is the most beautiful kind of revenge there is. Not destruction, not retaliation, not even justice, though we got that too. The most beautiful revenge is proving that the love you gave wasn't wasted, that the people you invested in became your greatest strength, that the life you built on service and compassion created a foundation so strong that even someone's calculated cruelty couldn't tear it down. Vanessa Pritchard is in prison now. She'll be there for the next 28 years. And every single day of those 28 years, she'll have to live with the knowledge that she destroyed herself trying to destroy someone who couldn't be destroyed. Because I wasn't alone. I was never alone. I put my arms around my 3 children, these 3 beautiful, brilliant, fierce protectors who'd started life in a cardboard box and ended up saving their mother from prison. I had family. Real family. The kind that shows up. The kind that fights. The kind that refuses to let you fall. So, here's my message to everyone watching. Invest in people. Love boldly. Fight for those who can't fight for themselves. Plant seeds of kindness even when you can't see the harvest. Because you never know when those seeds will grow into mighty oaks that shelter you from the storm. Vanessa thought love made me weak. But love made me invincible. And that's the story of how 3 street children I adopted 25 years ago saved me from prison, not with money or power or influence, but with the love I'd given them, returned to me 1,000-fold when I needed it most. I looked one last time at the courthouse where I'd faced my darkest moment. Sometimes you don't know how strong your foundation is until someone tries to tear down your house. Mine held, and it held because I built it on the right things. Thank you for watching. Thank you for believing. And remember, the love you give today might be the miracle you need tomorrow. My name is Lorraine Webb. I'm a mother of 3 extraordinary children, and this is the story of how we rewrote the ending together.